Hi, my name is Tracy Falukozi, and over the past 4 months I've been lucky enough to participate in the Artist in Residence program at the Fuse33 Makerspace supported by the International Avenue Arts and Culture Center. I was lucky enough to get the chance to learn about how to use laser cutters. In particular, I spent most of my time working with a full spectrum laser. It has a cutting bed of 30 by 32 inches and allowed me to build these really awesome pieces to this corset. A lot of the time that I spent at Fuse was in sort of learning what I needed to know in order to get this piece made. This piece is unfortunately still unfinished due to COVID restrictions. I have not been able to actually fit it to my model yet. When it's finished, I hope to be able to send some photos and add that to my portfolio, but I'm hoping to have it a beautiful gradient of brown and red, and actually have a photo shoot with it on my model. But as I said, there's still some sanding and some cutting to be done that cannot be completed until I have my model. But to get to this point, I spent a lot of time learning how to design using Adobe Illustrator. So the staff at Fuse33 were very helpful and supportive in helping me with sort of learning the elements I needed to know to design a project for a laser cutter. So there's certain constraints and boundaries that you have to take into consideration when cutting materials that I had no idea about. So not only did I have to teach myself how to use Illustrator and how to design a vector file that can be used in a laser cutter, I also had to learn about things like thickness and how, you know, the speed at which you're cutting and sort of, you know, how far you can push it and still achieve a nice design. So a lot of the time at the Makerspace, I spent sort of building up to this project. So I made a lot of Christmas themed things. My favorite piece that I made while I was working up to this was one of these. So I made probably 4 or 5 of these little trees for gifts and for sale over Christmas. So I was trying to teach myself to use Illustrator to produce things, and I thought, okay, well, it's nearly Christmas. Let's make some snowflakes. So I designed a snowflake, I designed a second snowflake, I cut a few of those snowflakes as well just to see how they would turn out. And then I started cutting things like this tree here, which was a lot of fun actually. It let me learn a lot of things about spacing. So if you see I have some really tiny lines here and some really tiny lines here that burned away, that didn't work. And you know, it was a really good learning process to see what I could push and what I could use to make my pieces functional, really. So my art has always been sort of a more functional, more wearable, more kind of practical art. I don't make a lot of things like this that are purely to be put on the wall. So a lot of my things involve wearable objects, and it was really nice to have access to the tools and supplies available at the Makerspace, so I could sort of play with that, and you know, I could attain something like this. I've never been a woodworker, and so the thought of doing anything out of wood that you could wear before was absolutely out of my comfort zone. And I thought, okay, well, originally I was thinking I'd make something out of metal, but then I kind of changed my mind and thought wood would be really cool. Like, I just really liked how the laser cutter cut the wood, and so I thought, all right, well, let's make a wood corset, which is a ridiculous thing to make because it's a solid object and it has to go around a round person. So I learned how to make these sort of hinges, these hinge pieces. If you can see, it flexes and allows it to have that movement that it will need to get around the person. And again, it's not put together super sturdily right now because I can't get it onto a model, but once it is, it should form to her body nicely so that we can get a nice line on her and still maintain the integrity of the wood. So it was really nice to learn those sorts of things. And again, the staff was really helpful, but also the other people at the space were very helpful in, you know, giving you that bit of like encouragement you needed, or that like, yep, this looks good, hit go on your laser cut, you know, it's probably going to be okay. And it was really nice to see all of the other creative projects going on in the room that you could use as like inspiration. And it's nice to be in a creative space because it helps your own creative juices kind of flow. So the more creativity that's in an area, the more you kind of bounce off of each other and can use that to influence your own work. So I think my biggest takeaway from all of this is just having learned how to use Illustrator a lot more fluidly for myself. There's a lot less, you know, yelling at the computer as I'm working, and I think that I'm going to continue to use that to design things like stencils in the future for my body painting work and to use it to, you know, for graphics and things like that. And that's something that I think is going to be something I will use every day. And then this access and ability to design for laser is absolutely going to be useful in the future if I build bigger projects and start up with like more intense programs going forward. So I'm really excited. I'm really excited to continue working at Fuse in the future and to have that as an option